It is the last day of the month of October. Good evening. This is The Big Story. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Tonight, an impromptu visit by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto to primary schools to oversee the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examination that entered its second day today has opened a national conversation on the effect the move will have on performance of pupils. On one hand, the government believes it is in the spirit of collective responsibility that the cabinet and the senior education ministry officers are overseeing the examination in a bid to avert cheating. The education officers also believe the visit by top government officers is a perfect encouragement for the candidates. But is it? Well, the commotion that comes with a mere visit of a president to a school is enough of a mental disruption for the pupils that could take days to clear. It is worse if this happens just minutes before the pupils begin an exam that will determine the next lane in their life. This, coupled with the strict invigilation employed where armed police officers are manning the examination in classes. The move could also trigger negative thoughts on schools that will not be visited by members of the executive. But even with the executive supervision, there has been more than 14 incidents involving KCPE candidates and invigilators in the last 2 days alone. More could be reported tomorrow when the candidates write their final paper. The big story tonight starts with the visit of the president to Uhuru Gardens Primary School earlier today.
Good morning. Good morning. And how are you today?
Fine, thank you, our president.
You all slept well?
Yes.
And you're all very ready?
Yes.
Yeah? Yes. Ready for the exams?
Yes.
Short tonight, I shall be speaking to two education specialists, Andiwa Obondo as well as Ferdinand Mbeche. But as usual, before I speak to them, our lead reporter, Sophia Anuna, has been gathering retractions on this very matter and is now on standby live with an education and policy expert for more. Sophia, good evening. What's the latest?
Good evening, Michelle. So the national examinations, the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations entered day 2 today. Tomorrow they complete their 3-day national and final examinations. As you indicated there, the president and the deputy president today in those spot checks in schools to just get them started on the examinations of the day. And yesterday we saw also quite a number of cabinet secretaries as well traverse different counties around the country. And there has been debate. Could this be encouraging, as the executive says it wants to do, and ensure it shows that they're supportive of the candidates, or could it be a distraction, cause tension unnecessarily? And there's also, of course, the question of what about the schools the senior government officials don't get to visit. So that's up in the air. But 1.06 million candidates that are sitting these examinations, and the executive from the president, the Minister of Education, that's Dr. Amina Mohammed, have been repeating and highlighting the fact that each and every one of these candidates will get a position in secondary school. Because remember, one of the biggest challenges that has been there in the past is that there's never 100% transition, that you find hundreds of thousands of students who are left out of secondary school slots. But they're assuring these candidates that each and every one of them will be getting a slot. But one of the things that also stands out, there have been several reports of teenage pregnancies, teenagers that are supposed to sit examinations. In fact, they have gone ahead to sit those examinations, but delivering just hours to the examination and then going ahead to sit for those exams. And the question that has been raised by some is usually when a mother gives birth, they will be given 3 months off of work, maternity leave, to be able first to recover, take care of the child and all, so that hours after giving birth is one in the right state of mind to sit an exam. Because remember, last year President Kenyatta had pronounced himself on when there are extraordinary that there should, NEC should prepare supplementary examinations for those kind of individuals. And some have argued these kind of scenarios where candidates are giving birth just hours to the examinations are extraordinary and shouldn't have to sit an exam immediately after welcoming a newborn into the world. But let's talk a little bit more about some of the issues arising from this year's examinations. I'm joined now by Dr. Jane Rose Mutegi. She is a lecturer of education management policy at the Kenyatta University Department of Education and Management Policy and Curriculum Studies. Thank you so much for making time for us, Dr. Let's begin with the executive monitoring of the examinations as it has been described. You've seen the deputy president, the president himself, the ministers in various schools. Of course, you see the students in smiles. They're happy to see these individuals. However, there are some who are concerned that this may have an adverse effect on the students. Do you agree?
Thank you, Sophie, for having me this evening. I will begin by saying that education is actually a key factor in the development of any nation. And therefore, it is very important that as a nation, we all embrace this idea of supporting the candidates, supporting education. The idea of the executive actually going to the examination centers, to me, I think it's a good thing to show that we are all pulling towards the same direction and to show the importance that we attach to education as a nation. And therefore, I think we should all actually support as parents, as teachers, as educators, educationists, policymakers, because this is a very important exercise. And so when the executive actually supports or moves around to encourage the candidates, to me it's very encouraging to these candidates, and it is something that we all need to applaud.
Yeah. Usually, of course, there's a police and heavy security presence escorting these materials, but there have been some images doing rounds of these armed officers in examination halls. Again, a concern around, is it overly militarized, quote unquote, to the extent that for some of these students, they don't see this armed or security agents every other day, and here they are sitting an important examination with that kind of presence. For you, is that a distraction as the government seeks to secure the exam?
I think the first question we need to ask ourselves, Sophie, is where did this come from? How did we get to this point of having policemen, armed policemen all over the places? It is because people have been cheating. Parents have been giving their children money to pay for examinations. And therefore, I think as a nation, it is a high time we actually reflected on where we are, our values. Education is key, but passing an examination or failing an examination is not the only determinant for success in life.
Right.
And therefore, I think it is a high time as a nation we did the right thing. We allow our children to do their examination and appreciate whatever grade that they score. Because at the end of it all, we will not all be academicians.
Yeah.
We will not all be, educationists. We will not all be doctors or teachers. We need people to do all the other many jobs that are available in this nation.
Yeah.
We all need to serve in very many areas. And that is a message that the parents need to get right, to get across, that we need to support our children. Those are the bottom. They are all our children, and we do not need to go an extra mile of cheating in an examination.
But perhaps, let me interject there, the cheating and the feeling of one must pass by it's called hook or crook, is it? It is because of the do-or-die nature of the national examinations, whether it's KCPE, KCSE, of course, is as well ongoing. Is it a failure not only of the parents, but of government, and even as a society, that we've penned everything on these exams, that this getting an A, getting a B is what means you're good to go? Do we need to, we've heard about the TVET, look at that perhaps more so that the kids, the children, boys and girls coming out of these schools know there is more than just being a doctor and a pilot, know that any of that is bad?
Thank you, Sophie. That is quite true, because every child is endowed with a skill or potential. All that we need to do as parents, as educators, as teachers, is to identify the potential in every child so that this child can be able to develop that particular potential and excel in their own area. The idea of passing examination, that should be secondary. I may score an A today, but how effective will that aim be tomorrow?
Okay.
You know,
Yes.
I couldn't score an A today, but it does not reflect my success tomorrow.
All right.
That is why we need to realize the potential in every child. And that is why, as a nation, we also need to ensure that all people are well remunerated. That is why people do not want to do maybe other jobs apart from being employed, white-collar jobs. It is high time we actually appreciated, all of us, every job. If I'm a bus driver, I'm a matatu driver, I should be happy. And I do it to my best. And I be respected for that, I am.
Yeah.
If I'm a teacher, if I am a nurse, if I'm a tailor, I become the best tailor. And I will succeed. That is the we need to pass across. Whatever you're doing at an individual level, give it your best. Do it to your best. And therefore, we will not have people struggling to score A's to join the School of Medicine, to score A's to join the university, to do engineering or those other courses.
So as the students sit their national examinations, you and I have heard the president, the minister, education talk about a transition that will happen 100% this time around. What do you attribute this confidence to? Because in the past, one of the biggest issues every time we come around national examinations has been as this 800,000, 900,000 seat, there'll be about 1,000, 300,000 will have no slots in secondary school. So what do you attribute this confidence to?
Thank you, Sophie. Actually, in the past, we've had a very low transition rate from primary school to secondary school. And this has been attributed to quite a number of factors. Among them, high cost of education, that some parents are not able to take their children to secondary schools due to lack of school fees and other, other requirements, which are quite many for joining Form 1. And then another challenge has been the minimum requirement to join Form 1. Some students are not able to score that grade. So when the government decides that it's going to allow every child to join Form 1 come next year, that's a brilliant idea, because we're going to find that we will have an increment in the transition rate from primary schools to the secondary schools. And I believe the confidence in the government is that now they have removed this aspect that it doesn't matter what you score at primary school, at the KCPE examination. You're going to join the secondary school come January. But there is an issue that they need to address, the facilities. Will we have adequate schools, adequate teachers, adequate facilities to accommodate this huge number of students? That's the area that we need to actually address so that we don't water the quality of education.
All right, finally, that point I was making earlier, we have reported cases of students ahead of sitting the examinations delivering bouncing babies. There's a case in Nyandarua, in Kericho, in Kitale, and I believe 2 others I am aware of. So hours to a national examination, a baby is born, and then the student still sits for this examination whilst in hospital. And there's those who are saying it's not proper, it's not right. Women get maternity leave, 3 months in fact. Here is just hours, and you don't even know how that process was for that student and teenager, and then they have an exam. Shouldn't we be exploring the supplementary route? Because I know for many they fear waiting now an extra whole year to now have to sit the exam, but shouldn't there be, in these particular cases, supplementary exams?
Actually, that's a very, very valid point. You find that when a young girl, these are very young girls, 14, 15, when they deliver, I believe they are not at their right mindset, at their right psychological setting to sit for a national examination. If there could be a supplementary examination for them, that would work quite well. The same case applies to those children, those candidates who are hospitalized. If you are unwell, you are not in the right mental state to sit for a national examination. So I believe that in moving forward, the government needs to put in place policies to address such cases.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe a mother who was just delivered, and these are child mothers, you know, they are in their right mind to sit for a national examination. And again, you cannot now compare them with their colleagues who have been standing, who have handled the time to prepare for the examination, yet they are sitting for the same examination.
Yeah.
I think they need to be given a few months off, maybe 2-3 months, then they can sit for the supplementary examination.
All right. Many thanks. Thank you so much for making time for us, Dr. Jane Rose Mutagi, who's a lecturer of education management at the Kenyatta University, with us tonight. And as you heard, Michelle, a number of issues emerging, but of course here on KTN News we continue to wish the candidates the very best. But those questions around how will this transition that the government is promising 100%, how will it be achieved? Because clearly there are many more numbers in terms of resources at the lower, that is primary level, than we have in secondary. And also those very low marks, how is it they are able to get them into the secondary schools? And the question of capacity, as we've heard from Dr. Mutagi as well, that's been mentioned. And this executive monitoring of the exams we've seen, we'll perhaps have to wait to see what effects to have at the end of the day, Michelle.
Absolutely. How did lead reporter there, Sophia Wanuna. But even with all the executive supervision witnessed in the ongoing exams, 2018 KCPE has not been without incidents. Let's take a look at some of the incidents that reached our news desk in the past 2 days since the examinations began there. And we begin with an incident in Kisumu County where police rescued a 17-year-old KCPE candidate who was allegedly locked up in a house with a college student allegedly from the Kisumu Polytechnic. Police have since launched a manhunt for the college student. We also have another incident reported from Homa Bay County where a KCPE candidate was hospitalized after taking poison. The candidate was from Koyo Primary School. This happening just at the start of the KCPE examinations yesterday in Kisii County. A KCPE candidate dies just hours to the exam, with the family claiming it was a liver infection. And as we mentioned, it's just been 2 days of these examinations, more than 14 incidents involving KCPE students there. Another one from Muranga County, a KCPE candidate, and we apologize there for writing KCSE. It is a KCPE candidate who collapsed and died during a pre-exam party. The school said the child showed no sign of sickness, and he succumbed to another student there from Gatanga also succumbing to rabies. And moving on to Trans Nzoia County as well, where a KCPE candidate also died after allegedly taking methanol. Now again, very interesting incidents being reported there, matters of life. There was a candidate from Meso there. So that is an incident from Trans Nzoia County. And like I mentioned, many more coming. There could be more reported tomorrow as the students sit for their last paper. So as the executive supervision of the exams continue, let's bring in our education specialist in the studio. We have Andio Obondo as well as Ferdinand Mbecha. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us on the big story tonight. I'd like to begin with you, Andio. The impromptu visits by the executive, led by the president, his deputy, as well as members of the cabinet, have opened quite a national conversation. There are those who say it is great encouragement for the students. Others, however, say it is a really big disruption, especially when it happens just minutes to the beginning of national examinations. What side of this debate do you fall?
Thank you very much for this. I think to me, it is a good thing that is happening. It shows government commitment in policy and practice. The problem is that maybe the timing might have been too soon before the next paper, but I don't think the effect that this may have would outweigh the benefits. One thing that we need to know from our history is that we've been calling for national commitment and government support to education processes. And if this can continue so that we are able to, one, increase confidence of Kenyans in the process, and two, also try to increase the credibility of the exam, both in terms of process and the outcome. But again, what we are calling for is that we hope that what the President and his deputy did today may not be a publicity stint, and therefore would expect that even after the exam, they show the similar level of commitment to teaching and learning processes, so that we are able to say government is fully supporting education, but visits alone may not be enough. We would want to go, also urge them to look at what challenges have we had before. And in terms of resourcing both the examinations and teaching and learning activities, what more can we do?
All right. Let me bring in Ferdinand for a moment. Ferdinand, what side of this conversation do you fall? What impact does it have to have the executive invigilate national examinations? And what impact especially on the schools that did not get a single visit from any member of the executive?
And learners don't expect that the president or the cabinet secretary or the deputy president would visit all the schools. They would be able to visit a few, 2 or 3. But we also have education officers that are on the ground, and government is spread across the country. So we expect that as the president, the CS, the NEC chairman oversee the process in particular schools, they are representatives. At the either county or sub-county level, should also be able to show the same level of commitment. So that I like the idea that it is now like a government program, and every government department is getting involved. This should be able to help us root out fraudsters that have been in this sector or in the system. And I think it is good that let the president, the deputy, and the CS visit a few schools they can, but we expect the other players, like we have directors of education at sub-county level, we have directors of education at county level, we have also field officers of different education departments, like could be TSC and others. They should be able to play the same role. Because what this, I think, should also do is not just to visit schools to find faults, but to provide support. Provide support to invigilators, provide support to school managers who are now responsible for their centers, and also provide any support that they would need, they would need to make sure that we have a process that is not doubtful, we have a process that everybody is confident about, and we have a process that is going to help us have credible results at the end of the day.
All right, let me bring in Ferdinand Mbeche. This move, of course, to have impromptu visits, even by the president, is part of the government's move to ensure that there's very little cheating in the examinations. In fact, President Uhuru Kenyatta, there is said to have ordered for the establishment of a command center at the office of the president to complement the Ministry of Education's efforts to curb exam cheating. In the past 2 years, the numbers or the rate of exam cheating has been quite alarming. We've seen reforms in the education sector by former Education CS Fred Matiang'i, now being continued by the current Education CS Amina Mohammed. Are you confident that the rate of cheating this year will be low?
Thank you so much. In my view, the attention that has been given to these examinations is very critical. It's very critical because investment in schooling is very expensive. And history has said that we've had problems with management of examinations. And the move by the president is actually we are in the right direction in trying to ensure that we can be able to deliver credible examination results. So in my view, if that particular department is actually expanded and reinforced, then and proper planning is done, not only during the time of examinations, is done continuously, because learning is a continuous process. So that it is integrated in our system of planning. So that at the end of the day, together, tracking the teaching learning process up to the evaluation point. So at that particular level, then I'm confident that such a kind of strategy is a very powerful strategy that can be able to assist, address, or mitigate the problem of cheating in examinations.
All right, so let's take a short break on the big story tonight. The impromptu visits by the president and his deputy to primary schools to oversee the KCPE examinations have raised quite the national debate. That is the focus of discussion on the big story tonight. Do stay with us. The conversation continues in just a moment.